Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. I'm going to have a go at filming my Dendrobiums today. Basically they are all over the place. Some are up in the roof, some are hanging. As a consequence I'll do the video in bits and pieces. But as I said, as far as Dendrobiums are concerned, they get put in all sorts of different places. That's alright, cat, don't get up. Stay where you are. And this opened on Costelli Wildcat Cheetah. Love it. Look at that colour. Lovely deep colour. Okay, on to the Dendrobiums then, and as I say, I'll have to do it in bits and bobs, so it may seem a bit disjointed, especially as I'll be doing other things in between. But okay, let's get started. Okay, this first one is jananam. It's a very pretty little flower. As usual, any that have flowered for me, a little pop-up will come up with the picture of the flower. So although this is only a small looking dendrobium, it has actually flowered. I recently took this off its mount, because it came off quite easily, and put it back on again. And in the process, that shoot there was actually a kiki. It had some reasonable roots on it, so I took that off and actually mounted it with the rest of the plant. It should flower again soon if it's going to this year, but it is actually an undersized plant. When it did actually flower, I think it's because the sections have been taken off a very large flowering size plant, and that was why it actually flowered, rather than the fact it was flowering size. But it grew quite well last year. It put up 2 nice big canes, and hopefully that kiki will push on this year. As you can see, this is one of the black hair type. I don't know whether the camera can actually catch that. Don't think I can get much closer than that without going out of focus. But basically the canes are covered in very, very tiny black hairs. That puts it into a certain category, which I'll look up and put up as a pop-up. I don't know those sort of things off by heart. They're just Dendrobiums to me. They're either nobiles or they're not. Aren't I cruel? So that's jananam. Okay, this one's chapen. Looks almost identical to the previous one. A very, very similar dendrobium, but not a black hair type this time. It's nicely attached to its mount. It's been there a while now. It is flowering size, despite being quite a small looking dendrobium. It did actually flower last year, and it should actually push some flowers out on those 2 largest canes. Those were my growths from last year. But given what I do to the poor little things in the winter, or certainly what I did this winter as an experiment, they didn't get a rest, or not a proper one. All that actually happened with my dendrobiums that are supposed to have a cool, bright, dry winter rest was because of our short day lengths. I put them up in the roof, which is about as bright as it can get, but unfortunately that's not as cool as it can get, so they didn't get the drop in temperature that they ought to have. And in addition to that, because most of them are mounted, I'm just can't be heartless enough to just withhold water on a mount. I just can't see that that's going to do the plant any good. So although the watering was reduced dramatically and feed was withheld, I didn't actually stop watering. So this business of whatever it is, firework night till Valentine's Day or something or other, I don't actually do that. As a consequence, I may get less flowers, but it was an experiment, and the results are still yet to be seen, because some of these aren't due to flower till sort of late March, April time anyway, so we shall see. Anyway, that's chapen. It's actually classed as a hybrid in my collection, because the guy who produced the seedlings at my Orchid Society, he doesn't actually know what his chapen was actually hybridized with. It just produced a seed pod. There were lots of plants the same around it. He assumes it was crossed with itself, but he can't guarantee it, so we have to class our seedlings as hybrids. Nonetheless, this has actually flowered. It is coming up to flowering size. Chapen. Very pretty flower on that one. This is one of my oddities. This would be classed as a miniature, I suppose, if you see the size of my hand and the size of the mount. And this is actually what it looks like. This is a full-size plant, and this is Oh, somebody's name, I've forgotten. Jenkinsii. So thank you, Mr. Jenkins, for finding this one for us and donating your name to it. But it's a strange little plant. It almost looks like squashed raisins or squashed grapes. But that's how they are. The new ones are to the right hand side there on the end. All those growths turned up last year. This one's yet to flower. It is obviously flowering size. It is a mature plant. This may be suffering from not getting its proper winter rest. We shall see. It's not really due to flower just yet, but I'd like to see some flowers on that this year. If not, I will have to do a much better job on the winter rest thing next year. Otherwise, I'm just going to have plants that just stay green and don't actually flower. So I'll see what I can do next year. But a lovely little plant. I love that. It's just, look at those pseudo bulbs. They're just really strange, I think is the expression. Okay, Jenkinsii, that one. Something a bit bigger. Yet another person's name. Friedrichianum, this one is. So thank you, Mr. Friedrichsen, or whatever your name is, for finding this one for us and donating your name to it. Typical sort of deciduous cane type dendrobium. Has actually flowers for me. The older canes are down here. They weren't very big. Most of those were there when I actually got it. When I actually got it, I thought the plant was dead, but then it burst into life and produced lots of new growth. But that's how the canes end up, a bit sort of shriveled and yellowy, and eventually they can shrivel up and can be taken off, but in the meantime they're probably still doing some good. Quite a few leafless canes on this one, but also it put up some nice growths last year. The leaved canes are mine, so it actually put up quite a few new growths last year. Hopefully I should get some flowers on those soon. That would be nice. Okay, so typical leaf deciduous dendrobium type. Should have a cool, dry winter rest, but it didn't get one. We shall see what happens as a result. So Friedrichianum to be precise. Unusual, this one, Findlayanum. It's actually a sort of strange growth pattern on this. Pushing out some nice new roots recently, which is good. A few attaching to the bark around the back there, we like to see that. So basically it's got an unusual growth pattern here. As the canes progress, they get swellings part way up. So like their pseudo bulbs come in stages as you go up the cane. Those nice two big shiny canes, they're mine from last year. They continued growing through the winter because that's how I grow them. So several swellings on that. Unusual looking plant. Findlayanum. Thank you, Mr. Findlay. I'm not going to get Harveyanum down. Basically I did an entire video on this one particular plant. It's done well for me. It's grown strongly. It's put out good roots down into the pot and grown new canes. The flower spike that I filmed on its starring role has long since gone. A second one came and a third one came, and we've still got flower spikes to go. We've got that one up there which is swelling up nicely, and we've got this one here, so there's another one coming, and then this smaller one here coming along behind. So once this next spike actually gets into flower, it should stay in flower for some time, extending its flowering periods quite dramatically. They don't last that long, the flowers, but they're well worth it. Pop up in the corner as usual. So I'll leave that one where it is. It doesn't need to come down. Next is this tatty looking object, too big to actually hold in my hand, so I had to put this one down. This is Stardust Firebird. It's a nobly type, effectively. It was doing the rounds last year. A profusion of fire orange red flowers, so intense that they sort of virtually covered the canes. That was in its ideal world. I don't think anybody who took one on is ever going to get them to flower like that again. They were mass produced. But I do have some flowers coming. I've also got kikis coming out all over the place. It doesn't seem to be a strong variety. Lots of people had trouble even keeping these things alive when they got them. But I do have flower spikes coming, so I am going to get some flowers. Lots of leafless canes now. It did get a very bad attack of bugs but it seems to have recovered from that. Not the best looking plant, but when the flowers come out it'll be worth it. So that's a Stardust Firebird. Right, so now we're really multitasking. To get at some of these up in the roof, I needed to move quite a lot, and I thought most of those are dailies. If I'm going to move them, I'm going to water them. I'm not going to move them twice. So I'm now in the middle of watering as well as showing you my Dendrobiums. Now, strictly speaking, this is a Dendrobium, and it isn't. It's one of those that's been shifted out into its own little category. It's a Bifrenaria. Oh, hang on, I probably said that wrong. It is Bifrenaria. Harrisoniae. So thank you, Mr. Harrison, for this one. This is a strange little plant. The flowers are a little unusual, and I can see why this was moved out of Dendrobium into its own category. It is different enough to actually justify that. This was a raffle plant. Basically, it was in a bit of a state. It had that pseudobulb and that pseudobulb, and I knew nothing about the plant. I'd never heard of it. I had to look it up. But it grew these two last year, so it put out 2 new growths. Hasn't flowered yet, and there's no sign of life on it at the moment, so I presume it's one of those that just fires up later in the year and has a relatively short growing season. But unusual leaves on it, sort of quite large, strappy leaves. But yeah, it's not my favourite plant, but then if it flowers, I'm sure it'll go up the list. So Harrisoniae, Bifrenaria. Oh, I've said it wrong again. What is it? Bifrenaria. Oh. Anyway, that's that one.